Well, it's a Monday, and Mondays are the days that I record this particular podcast. And the thing about Mondays for me is Mondays are the most depressing day of the week. Why, you ask? Well, it's Monday. And the thing about Monday that is particularly significant for me is it's the day after Sunday. So every Sunday I preach. And I love getting to preach, and I love being with the church, and I love worship. But it wears me out. It's exhausting. I end up kind of depleted, not only physically from the toll that it takes, but also spiritually and really emotionally as well. And so on Mondays, I find myself depressed very often. So I have this activity I do on Mondays. I lay on the floor in my study. Now, people who are closest to me know what's going on. They're not panicked, they're not alarmed, they just know it's Monday. So there's going to be a point where I just lay on the floor and stare at the ceiling because, well, it's Monday. But other people, they don't necessarily know that, and they may walk into my study and they panic. They're like, what's going on? Why are you on the floor? What's happening here? And I said, well, I'm kind of depressed. Now, I don't know if you've ever talked to a depressed person and tried to help them reevaluate and rethink what they're going through and what they're experiencing. I'll just let you know, it rarely works because we say goofy things. Like people say things like, well, what do you have to be depressed about? Look, there's tons of things to be depressed about. There's all kinds of things to be depressed about. That doesn't help. That just gets you kind of turning and your wheels turning and thinking about that even more. Or they say things like, well, it could always be worse. Oh, that's great. That's what I want to think about when I'm depressed. How it could actually be worse. Or they say things like, well, at least it's not like what so-and-so's going through. That does not make me feel better. Knowing that somebody else is experiencing something maybe more challenging or more difficult than I am actually makes me even more depressed. You see, none of those things really help. But I'll tell you some things that do. A little rest, that helps. To rest, and when I lay on the floor and I look up, sometimes it's a change in perspective that I need. I'm sitting at my desk and I'm just overwhelmed, so I just lay on the floor and I look up and I rest. I think that's important. Sometimes that moment of rest with a new perspective allows us to see things in a new way, or at least to look up and to fix our eyes on God. So I think rest helps. I think a new perspective helps. To see things like maybe God's seeing them. To redirect our thoughts and to think about what is good and right and true and who God is and who we are in relationship to Him. I know for me, when I get depressed, a lot of times it's maybe because I don't feel like I performed up to the level that I really had hoped to. But to really rest in God's presence, He just tells me that He's enough and I am His. And I'm in Him and I'm with Him and He's got me. And, He pulls me out of that. And so here's the thing about depression. I don't know all the answers or all the solutions, but I know that God fills us with His Holy Spirit. He puts His Spirit inside of us and He fills us to a measure of all fullness so that we overflow with hope. And hope is really the opposite of depression. And so I know when I'm not overflowing with hope, it's probably because I've depressed the Spirit inside of me. I've taken these cares, anxieties, these comparisons, the stress, the worries, my insecurities, and I've just kind of piled them on top of the Holy Spirit. And there's not less of Him in me. There's just more of this other stuff, and it depresses the Spirit. And so when I rest in Him, God just says, let's take that out, and let's take that out, and let's get rid of that, and let's remove that. And His Spirit rises. And depression is eased and relieved, and there is a fullness and a completeness in God that then allows me to overflow with hope. And if you're depressed today, I hope that helps you as well. I'm going to go lay on the floor.